Most people think taxes are something you pay to your own government: income tax, sales tax, property tax. But what if I told you that every time you fill up your car, buy groceries, or even check your bank balance, you might be paying a hidden tax to the United States government? And here's the kicker: you don't even know it's happening. This isn't some conspiracy theory. This is the most sophisticated taxation system ever created, and it's been running quietly in the background of the global economy for decades. While other nations debate tax rates and argue over fiscal policy, America has built something far more elegant and far more profitable. A system that extracts wealth from every corner of the planet without a single vote, without a single protest, and without most people even realizing they're being taxed at all. The secret lies in something economists call seigniorage, but what I call the ultimate financial magic trick. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how America turned the entire world into its personal tax base. But first, let me show you just how massive this operation really is. Every day, roughly $5 trillion moves through the global financial system. That's trillion with a T, and here's what will blow your mind. Nearly 90% of all international transactions happen in US dollars. Not euros, not yen, not yuan, American dollars. Think about that for a second. When a German company buys oil from Saudi Arabia, they pay in dollars. When a Japanese manufacturer sells electronics to Brazil, they settle in dollars. When a Nigerian farmer exports cocoa to Switzerland, the transaction flows through the dollar system. But here's where it gets interesting. Every single one of those dollars had to be created by the United States Federal Reserve. And every time a new dollar enters circulation, it represents a tiny slice of wealth extracted from the global economy and delivered straight into American hands. It's the most brilliant taxation scheme in history, and most taxpayers don't even know they exist. Let's start with the foundation of this system. In 1944, while World War II was still raging, representatives from 44 nations gathered in a small New Hampshire town called Bretton Woods. The world's financial system lay in ruins, and someone had to rebuild it. The question was, who would control the new order? Britain had been the dominant financial power for over a century, but the war had drained its resources. The Soviet Union was rising, but their communist system made them an unlikely partner for global capitalism. That left the United States, virtually untouched by the war, sitting on enormous gold reserves and producing nearly half of the world's manufactured goods. The deal struck at Bretton Woods was elegant in its simplicity. The US dollar would become the world's reserve currency, backed by American gold reserves. Other nations would peg their currencies to the dollar, and the dollar would be convertible to gold at a fixed rate of $35 per ounce. In exchange, America would provide stability, liquidity, and access to the largest consumer market on Earth. But here's what most people don't understand about that agreement. By making the dollar the world's reserve currency, every other nation essentially agreed to hold their savings in American IOUs. Central banks around the world began accumulating dollars as their primary foreign exchange reserves. Those dollars had to be invested somewhere, and the safest, most liquid investment in the world was US government bonds. This created what economists call exorbitant privilege. America could run massive budget deficits, finance wars, build infrastructure, and fund social programs not just with taxes from American citizens, but with money borrowed from the entire planet. And because the world needed dollars to trade with each other, demand for American debt was virtually guaranteed. The system worked beautifully until it didn't. By the late 1960s, America was spending heavily on the Vietnam War and President Johnson's Great Society programs. The government was printing more dollars than it had gold to back them. Foreign governments, led by France's Charles de Gaulle, began demanding gold in exchange for their dollars. The US gold reserves started hemorrhaging. On August 15, 1971, President Richard Nixon made an announcement that would reshape the global economy forever. America was closing the gold window. No more convertibility, no more fixed exchange rates. The dollar would now float freely against other currencies, backed not by gold, but by the full faith and credit of the United States government. Most economists predicted disaster. How could the world continue using a currency backed by nothing more than government promises? But something remarkable happened instead. The dollar system didn't collapse. It evolved into something far more powerful. Without the constraint of gold convertibility, America gained unlimited flexibility to manage its money supply. During recessions, the Federal Reserve could print money to stimulate the economy. During inflation, it could tighten the money supply. But most importantly, it could export that inflation to the rest of the world. Here's how the magic works. When the Federal Reserve creates new dollars, those dollars don't just stay in America. They flow out into the global economy through trade, investment, and lending. Foreign companies need dollars to buy American goods, to purchase commodities priced in dollars, and to service dollar-denominated debts. Foreign governments need dollars for their reserve holdings and to intervene in currency markets. This creates what I call the dollar recycling machine. America prints dollars, spends them on imports from around the world, and those dollars eventually flow back to the United States as investments in American assets. It's like having a credit card with no spending limit, where someone else always pays the bill. The numbers are staggering. As of today, foreign governments and institutions hold over $12 trillion in US Treasury securities. That's $12 trillion that America has borrowed from the rest of the world at historically low interest rates to fund everything from military operations to social security payments. And because the debt is denominated in dollars that America can print at will, the risk of default is essentially zero. But the taxation goes deeper than just government borrowing. Consider what happens when you walk into a store and buy something imported. Maybe it's a smartphone from South Korea, coffee from Colombia, or a shirt from Bangladesh. The price you pay includes what economists call the dollar premium, but what's really happening is far more insidious. That Korean smartphone manufacturer didn't just wake up one day and decide to price their products in dollars. They were forced into it by the architecture of global finance. Samsung needs dollars to buy the semiconductors from Taiwan, the rare earth minerals from Africa, and the assembly components from China. Every link in that supply chain runs on dollars, creating a cascading demand that flows back to one source, the Federal Reserve's printing press. When Samsung converts their yuan into dollars to make those purchases, they're essentially paying a conversion tax to the dollar system. When they hold dollars as working capital, they're providing an interest-free loan to the American economy. And when they invest those dollars in US Treasury bonds to earn a return, they're funding America's budget deficit at below market rates. The same pattern repeats across every industry, every country, every transaction. Oil, the lifeblood of the modern economy, trades almost exclusively in dollars. This isn't an accident or a market choice. It's the result of a carefully constructed system that began in the 1970s with a secret deal between America and Saudi Arabia. After the oil shocks of 1973 and 1979, when OPEC quadrupled oil prices and brought the American economy to its knees, something had to change. The Nixon administration, and later the Carter administration, negotiated what became known as the petrodollar system. Saudi Arabia would continue pricing oil in dollars and recycling their oil revenues into American financial markets. In exchange, America would provide military protection, weapons, and technology to the Saudi kingdom. This wasn't just a bilateral deal. It became the template for America's relationship with oil producers around the world. From the North Sea to the Persian Gulf to the shale fields of Texas, oil flows in one direction and dollars flow in the other. Every gallon of gasoline you pump, every plastic product you buy, every flight you take carries embedded within its price a hidden tribute to the dollar system. But energy is just the beginning. The dollar's dominance extends into commodities markets with surgical precision. Gold, silver, copper, wheat, corn, soybeans, coffee, cocoa, cotton. Nearly every raw material that powers modern civilization trades in dollar-denominated contracts on American exchanges. Even when the buyers and sellers are both non-American, even when the commodities never touch American soil, the transactions flow through the dollar system. This creates what I call the commodity tax. Every time a Brazilian soybean farmer sells to a Chinese manufacturer, both parties must acquire dollars to complete the transaction. That demand for dollars gives America the ability to extract value from trades it has nothing to do with. It's taxation without representation on a planetary scale. The banking system amplifies this effect exponentially. Most people think of banks as local institutions that take deposits and make loans in their home countries. But the reality is that the largest banks in the world operate as dollar distribution networks. Deutsche Bank, HSBC, Credit Suisse, Mitsubishi Financial. These aren't really German, British, Swiss, or Japanese banks anymore. They're branches of the dollar system, converting local savings into dollar-denominated investments and loans. When a European pension fund wants to diversify its holdings, where does the money go? American stocks, American bonds, American real estate. When a sovereign wealth fund in Norway or Singapore wants to park its oil revenues, what do they buy? Dollar-denominated assets managed by American financial institutions. The world's savings flow inexorably toward Wall Street, providing America with the cheapest capital on earth. Every transaction, every trade, every economic decision made anywhere on earth feeds into this machine. The German buying Saudi oil, the Japanese selling to Brazil, the Norwegian pension fund, the Chinese manufacturer, they all pay their tribute to the dollar system, and most of them don't even realize it's happening. This is taxation on a scale that would make the Roman Empire jealous. No legions required, no conquered territories to govern, just the quiet, relentless extraction of wealth through the very medium of exchange the world has no choice but to use. And the most remarkable part? The system is so elegant, so deeply embedded in the fabric of global commerce, that dismantling it would require rebuilding civilization itself. America hasn't just taxed the world. It's made the world dependent on being taxed. If this opened your eyes to how money really works, hit subscribe. The game is rigged, and now you know who's running it.